out my aces, talking to the weakest. If I see it in y'all faces, then give me my praises. Give the most high, we serve the earth, the time to waste.
Yo.
Certifications, my foot hard and maintain overload your
Hope all
brain,
is
give your
well.
mind a twist. You want the genre of every word that
Today's
I can throw back
page.
rotation like puff pass. Welcome to the Southwest, so they not you give
Introduction, an indigenous-led platform for creative placekeeping. What up, guys? Just tuning in. We're here. Today's page, we're gonna be highlighting COHAKIA, social tech and art space. I'm excited for this one. Hope y'all stay tuned. We're just waiting for them to join. Indigenize the world. This is their website right here.
Now we celebrating. Well, love goes out to the hard times. We never forgetting those days we lived. We walked along all of those days as kids. She stood by my side, telling me you're going to see the top someday.
See you bang.
But I let time slip away here on my own rocking mics. With the fate of the world and my notes I write. LAR on the wall, give it up to my people here to claim it's rightfully ours. Aiming at the stars up 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the COHAKIA page to join in. Follow them, check them out.
Like the world at once on a cycle, and that's 11 years. It took 11 beers to hit this freestyle. Southwest very own, born and bred just to get wild.
There we go. There is. Hey, what's this, guys? We're here. Indigenize the world. Sent them an invite. Hello. How you doing?
Good.
Meeting this all. Yeah, I found your page, and I really like what you guys are doing. Hello, everybody. It's Indigenize the World, another live. Today's page, I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
COHAKIA. Yeah.
COHAKIA. Okay, I was close. COHAKIA. I love it. This is what captures me, guys, is the social tech and art space. You know, this is, I never heard these words together before. And that's why I want to talk about what you guys are bringing to the table, not just to indigenous platforms, indigenous artists, but to Phoenix, the local art scene here, which needs a lot of love and support. So I love what I'm seeing, you know.
Yeah.
And this is what I invited you out to this to do this Instagram live to also talk about your page, what you want to bring to the page, to your followers, what they to expect, and also who are you guys? You know, the faces behind this page. I love what I see, and I'm excited to see what you guys are doing. And I'm also in the Valley, so I'll be coming out to you guys' art shows as well. I'm a recent follower, so I'll be at the next one. But for the guys, for everybody tuning in. Take this time to introduce yourself and your page.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for inviting. Yeah, we are many. We are many creatives. Can you hear me out there? Let me know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, cool. So we are new. We aren't open yet. We just started, I want to say 7 weeks ago is when we got the keys and started operating full force. We are an indigenous-led platform for creative placekeeping, and just kind of highlighting what placekeeping means is that there's been this ongoing development happening in downtown Phoenix, and a lot of times urban communities and art communities will use placemaking as a tool to incorporate art and public art displays or just anything that would gauge like human curiosity and also keep the place of the community safe. They incorporate that into the development plans. But one thing that I had recognized and noticed, I've been a designer for 19 years in downtown Phoenix, and kind of hovered in this space on Roosevelt Row Arts District. And I realized there wasn't a lot of indigenous people or indigenous representation in a place that has so much history. And so it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'm going to start recoining something and start saying that, you know what, whenever Indigenous people walk into a space, we immediately indigenize it, because we bring our history, we bring our community, and we bring our art, we bring our culture. And when I started utilizing that term, indigenizing space, I then started reterming placemaking into placekeeping, and then just understanding that placekeeping is part of the process of placemaking, because when you make a place, you then have to continue to support the social fabric and the social existence of things that existed prior to when change happened. And so how do you do that? How do you keep your place? How do you like save, right, some creativity or save some space for communities that have been displaced or pushed out? So again, it's very, very business type terms, but I use it so we can communicate what that looks like in kind of coining that sustainability loop. But then also, so what we do here is when you say social tech and art space, social technology is actually a really old definition for how people organize. And people have been organizing since humans have existed. So when you look at that in social technology, democracy, for instance, is social technology. It's an experiment, right? It's Europeans coming here to develop a world that, you know, where their religious and their cultural backgrounds can be represented in a way where they felt like they needed to make their place. But then you also have to consider Indigenous people also existed here, and we also had our own communities and our own way of doing things. And so social technology is just something that we all co-create. And right now, social technology is very much in the digital realm. The way we're communicating right now, the way we reach out and grab people and pull them in. So we use it in a twofold technology or explanation. The people here that congregate our members and our ambassadors, they meet every week and make decisions for the focus and the mission of the space, meaning that if we are a creative platform and we are about placemaking and we are Indigenous led, what does that mean when we want to hold our place using culture, art, and perspective? So we curate gallery shows, we sell products, we develop events, right? And we partner with community organizations. And so we just, the cool idea is that we all do it together, and we make decisions together, and we base it on consensus. And if you understand what consensus is, it's just understanding what your tolerance levels are. For instance, I'm sure you have a favorite ice cream. I have a favorite ice cream, but I also have an ice cream that I don't like. And then you probably have one that you don't like. So through consensus, we figure out what kind of ice cream we're going to eat if we're ever going to sit down and eat ice cream together. So yeah. It's just kind of like those sorts of decision-making tools that we're teaching, and also practicing, because I don't know everything. I'm learning this myself. I'm realizing I'm having to unlearn a lot of hierarchy structure that's just been taught to me naturally when I've been growing up. And so this provides that safe place to do that, for us to be able to be heard and our voices to be able to be at a table that creates change. So that's the social technology aspect. When you incorporate social media, YouTube, TikTok, anything, any platform, basically, Instagram, Facebook, those are also social technology tools in the way that we organize. So we also incorporate that too. The space that we're currently building out right now is going to have YouTube sets. We're going to have a podcast room. We're going to have different ways to mobilize Indigenous people so that we can create our own narrative, and represent ourselves in the arts district. So that's kind of why art space is we're creating the art space together.
Yeah. And I love the vision. I love it, because I think that's what a lot of Native spaces need, is exactly what you're doing. Or at least in every city, border town, but we need a place to where natives can come together and kind of throw these ideas and have the resources available for them to get creating and putting the content out. I think what you guys are providing now is vital, and I hope the younger generation really catch on and to really seeing how to not just use their own individual voices, but collectively they could create something powerful and put out. And that's what I love about your guys' page and your establishment that's going to be open pretty soon.
Yeah, so let's throw out some dates for you because our grand opening is going to be Indigenous Peoples Day. So highlighting the day that we are reclaiming, right? And we're doing it through a poster show that we've held for the last 3 years. I'm part of, so to break it down on how far this collaboration is existing and how it's kind of come to be COHAKIA. COHAKIA is a real place in time. It's real, but it's historic and it's ancient. It existed, pre-Columbus when Turtle Island wasn't invaded. The communities were thriving. It was a place where indigenous people from all over Turtle Island would come together and exchange knowledge. They would innovate and they would cultivate together and they would share their information. This is how we were able to exist without borders. And this was how we were able to speak different languages, live different ways, but come together and share all these ideas. And so really that's why we wanted to name it COHAKIA, because we want that place in modern day. We want that vibe. We want that existence to come alive again. And so COHAKIA, for us to be doing a grand opening on Indigenous Peoples Day, our Rise to Reclaim poster show is part of indigenizing Collab. And indigenizing Collab is just a group of designers, indigenous designers that have come together to amplify their voice through design. And then our other partner is Indigenous Community Collaborative, who focuses more on the educational structures, the workforce development structures, and the economic development structures. And so really, we're twofold in the way that we operate. We also partner with Roosevelt Rowe, CDC, which is a community development corporation. And what they help with is providing that layer of being able to communicate and create connections within the downtown urban space. So it's really such a trifecta where we're working all of our different angles, but we're able to come together at the table, and Native artists and creatives are able to voice themselves through this decision-making process and say, like, what we really need, what we really noticed is people start off their ideas, they kick off their ideas by, it'd be cool, it'd be cool if we did this, it'd be cool if we did that. And then just the ideas blow up, and then people will chime in and say, I can help you with that, or I can support this area, or I know somebody that I can bring to the table that may be able to help us with that. So it's pulling all of our resources to do one thing, and that's to activate this space. So Indigenous Peoples Day, mark your calendars. We want to see everybody flow through. Behind me is some posters on the wall. These are previous posters that we had for our first Rise to Vote poster show, or Rise poster show. And then since then, we've just been doing projections, we've been doing poster art, and right now there's a call for art. We've extended it because we only got 6 replies, and I know that football happened this weekend. So I'm giving all of those creatives more time to, be a part. So,
you want to talk about that art piece project?
Yeah, so the call for art is, the due date is September 19th at 11:59 p.m. And the size of the posters are the exact size here. They are 18 by 24 with a 1-inch white border. And all of the specs are on our form. And to get the form, I will go ahead and put the link in the comments so that you all have this. But basically, you go ahead and fill out the form, you upload your poster. We have a print sponsor that has dedicated their resources to be able to print all of these items, and then we will hang them for our grand opening. So it's really cool to see how many people are stepping up for this. And then the posters will be on display for the month of October.
Yeah, it's you guys got something going on. I mean, this is something like when people, I hear a lot of native artists, native futuristic talk, you know, and like, just, what are we gonna do? How do we build the future, you know? And this, I see your website, and this is what we need. You know, this is how you kind of bring the social tech and art spaces together. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm kind of like, it's such new. I can't. My mind's still kind of like, what's gonna come out of this, you know? Because
Yeah.
just the words itself is kind of like, but I can see it though, because the natives are utilizing the technology that is given, you know, and we're taking space, you know, and
We
we're
are
keeping space,
taking space. We're
keeping space.
reclaiming it.
Yep,
Reclaiming
and
space,
that's
and that's a big thing, especially when we are responsible for our own narratives, right? We can't wait for people
mhm,
to tell what happened in the past, you know, and inform the present and tell them like your culture is important, you're important, your identity is important, your language is important, the land is important. And then how do you bring that into the future? One thing that we always tell the people who visit is we are living in 3 time frames. As Indigenous people, we inform ourselves by the past, we live in the present, but we're always looking for our future, right? We're always looking to it and trying to create for it. So we are always multitasking in that way, and this is what makes us so unique, and this is why this space is needed. And I'm so
needed.
glad
Yeah,
that you jumped on because you're doing it too. You're
yeah, like
collaborating, bringing people in and talking
yeah.
and doing it on technology.
Yeah, that's why I was like, because I'm a hip hop artist. That's how I started Indigenize the World, and I went out my younger 20s, you know, and took Indigenize to a lot of reservations. Nobody heard. They heard about decolonizing, and as a young, you know, young man growing in my teenage years, I heard that word decolonize, and then it led me on a whole mental journey and you know, getting rid of how a lot of decolonial work. And then I found the word indigenize, which I was like, okay, I'm getting rid of all this stuff, but what do I keep and what do I replace it with? You know, and
Mm-hmm.
I need a word, and that's when I came. Well, I need indigenize, and how do you make something indigenous, or how do I not make something? How do I add my culture to it, or represent my culture? You know, and who I am and all that. So I came up with indigenize the world, and then I started researching that word itself, and it led me on a whole like, wow, you research that word, and you're gonna find a lot of um, I don't know, it's a lot of work that's happening right now as far as indigenizing education, indigenizing arts education, indigenizing fashion, indigenizing therapy, indigenizing healthcare. There's indigenizing. One thing I like is indigenizing the archives. Oh, I think we might have lost her. All right, we're just reconnecting, unable to join. Well, let me gotta invite you in. Hey,
Sorry.
oh, it's okay. You all right?
Yeah, I got disconnected. I dropped.
Oh, okay. Nice.
No, but I
Yeah,
love what
but
you were saying. I think you're onto something, especially if you're researching a lot of those words. Indigenize, indigenizing space, right, is not only reclaiming it, but it's also getting it ready for the future. And that's what we do as designers
yeah,
and creatives, pass the knowledge on. So I'm definitely a believer in that. I'm so glad that you're on the same path. It means that we all
yeah,
need to connect.
yeah. Yeah, because you know, Phoenix is it's a hub for many indigenous people, cultures, business, art. You know, and I know that Phoenix is trying to really vamp up the art scene as far as the Indian arts festivals, you know. But what those come and go, and I'm glad you guys are staying year round to have a space for natives in Phoenix and natives that come through Phoenix to have a spot to check out the work and to add to you guys' vision and to collaborate, because I've seen that on your website. You guys are into that collaboration. You know, you guys want to collaborate with other people and make that you know, a part of the lesson, because of a lot of our indigenous people, especially in this pandemic, haven't been are having challenges of how do we collaborate, how do we take this technology and try to collaborate collectively, you know, and stay in the same time zones. And that's one
Right.
thing I'm having a hard time with as far as interviewing people is time zones, and
Yeah.
some of them don't have technology or Instagram, so they got to download it. They got to do all kinds of stuff. My baby just woke up.
No. That's so funny
It's
that you
okay.
said that. Oh. Well,
She's okay.
at least he's up and awake, right? One thing
Yeah.
that I kind of wanted to highlight was, and Indigenous CC Melody, my partner, she's been my teammate all through this. We immediately connected and saw that we love to collaborate. We love to bring people in. We also knew there was a certain collectivism about this, that you need to be supporters of one another. You need to uplift one another. And it just resonated how we were able to give space and then create space together. And one of the things that we constantly go back to, and one of the things that really supports what we do, is talking about indigeneity. And you kind of hit that right on the mark, but a lot of times people think that indigeneity is just Native Americans, but the reality is that on Turtle Island and on other continents, there were indigenous people that existed for a long portion of time. And because of war and because of famine and because of poverty and because of just scenarios, right, that happen in our existence, we were displaced. We had to move, we had to relocate, or we were kept to certain grounds because borders were created. And anyway, those borders kind of separated the way that we were indigenous. And so when we talk about indigeneity, it's not just natives. I mean, we've had chats with Palestinians, we've had chats with people from Africa. We've brought in a collaborator from India. And so when you really start to talk about displacement and what indigeneity means, it's broader, and there's a lot of people fighting for their existence. They're fighting for their language and their land. So it's just the way that we are connected, right? How are we connected as humans? We're connected by language, and then we're connected to the land that our language is pretty much from. And so that's where indigeneity sprouts from. And it's just voicing that. It's just talking about it. You know, English is a colonial language. It's not from here. So, you know, why are laws created around that? Well, then you have to dive into white supremacy, and you have to dive into all these other tactics that are out there, right? To take that culture out of you and make you into something that's not what you were.
Yeah, and that's one thing Phoenix needs, especially down there. They need to see that. They need to, you know, it's everywhere. You know, we talk about indigenizing, especially design. You know, when I see architectural, indigenizing architecture, and you know, we see it. You drive around cities, border towns that surround Native people. They take their designs, they put them across. It makes it look nice. You know, it makes it look nice, but it's not really what we're trying to talk right now to the city about. You know, we're trying to talk about our water rights, keeping clean water, a healthy way of life. You know, these are the messages we want to put up in the city. You know, this is the messages we're talking about. You know, we're not trying to, I don't know, that's a whole, not get too political, but
I totally, it goes
our
deep, right?
messages, yeah.
It goes deep as far as like what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
creating partnerships. And that's actually something, so we operate in circles, and that's something that we're talking about now, is how to partner how do we as an organization and a group of people partner with outside ideology and outside missions and outside, how do we create that alignment? Because sometimes companies will be all words, but their actions speak differently. And then how do you line that up to our values? Because we operate on a completely different level. We live in two worlds, right? We know what that looks like. We know what poverty looks like. We know what lack of resources look like. And we also know that it still exists today, that people have no running water, you know, and we have family members that live in those situations, but we're lucky to be in the urban community and to be able to represent our families back home that can't speak up. And so that's really why COHAKIA is such a powerful idea, is because we're bridging that gap, we're bridging that conversation, but we're making it relevant, and we're doing it in a way that people are just blown away. Like, you know, technology, and then I look at them like, I'm an application analyst. Like, I have learned technology in my career as a designer, and now I design systems, and they just kind of are shocked. And they're like, you weren't trained in that? Like, you didn't go to school for that? And I'm like, no, this is just stuff that I learned. But I know I come from people who know how to create systems and know how to create coexistence. So it all goes back to who we are.
Yeah, and we're dealing, and as far as like the creative side is, there's so many creative natives out there. You know, we're not just silversmithing anymore. We're not just doing one medium. Most, you know, I've been seeing some silversmiths have TikToks, Instagram, Facebook, YouTubes, making tutorials, you know, doing photo shoots, you know, all by himself, you know. So it's like, but I'm sure it took a lot for him to learn all those programs, what he needed, what works best for him, you know. And I'm glad that we have such savvy natives out there, especially with the tech, to be there for them, to answer you guys, to all the creatives questions, you know. This is how you do it, this, you know, this is how we can change things up, you know. Because when a native start creating, they usually don't have the resources or the knowledge, or someone that has experience, you know, that comes from their community that looks like them. So this is why this, your page, your work, really your guys' work stuck out to me, is that this is something very new. And I hope these type of spaces spread, you know, to really gear these creative in a hub and get them creating. You got your camera, you got your green screen, you got your computers, you got your software. Let's get editing, let's get storytelling, let's get, you know, let's get something done, you know, because sure, we're always migrating, but what remains is what we leave on the walls, you know. Let's leave something good. And that's one thing before we cut out, you know, that's the indigenizing the archives, you know, leaving our memories, our sacred memories, you know. So one day this interview, your nieces, nephews, someone might be watching this later on down the road. I'm gonna be like, oh, look at Auntie doing her thing, you know. Oh, look at Uncle, he's doing his thing too. So it's like we're leaving the databases that are collecting all our work, you know. We're leaving some of these memories that they can erase, and you know, there's so much content out there. You know, let's keep the people thinking, instead of digesting all this content, not really socially thinking about what they're watching, what they're creating, what the content is. Let's have some content out there to make people thinking about what they're creating, you know. And where are they taking it, you know, because you might go viral, but you know, you might not know what to do with that popularity. You might not what to do, you might not where to go, how to maneuver with this art, with however you're creating, however you're gaining interest, however you're gaining your popularity, your brand. You know, people might not have a direction, because our indigenous people are breaking new ground every day as far as this colonial borders. You know, we were breaking through them, we're burning them down. And with these new roles and leaderships that we're taking, it's new ground for us, for a lot of our people, you know. So I'm glad that you guys are creating this space and really walking the talk and making the people come together and collaborate. You know, that's, for me as an artist, that's some of the hardest things to do as indigenous artists, is to collaborate.
Oh,
you know.
Yep.
So
To give some
I'm
space,
not.
right?
Yes.
It's all about giving.
How do you feel about the art district now?
I mean, I feel like we got a lot of work to do, but I think we got some strong partners. I'm one of those people that instead of complaining, I'd rather do stuff to make it better. I've always been that way. You know, I can sit on the sidelines and say, oh, you know, all the galleries are disappearing, all the things, all the art is leaving, all this, like, yeah, it is. You're creating facts. Yes, we see it, but what are we doing? Like, what are we doing collectively to make that stop or to create partnerships where our voices are heard? And this is just, Cahokia is an example of how community-based organizations and arts organizations can cooperate with collective people and with indigenous people, and how we can lead in this concepting, because I guarantee these sorts of ideas can only come from indigenous people. They're not created, or they're created by a collective of different international people, because they have to sit down and figure out how they're going to work together. They have to figure out what that, you know, technology is, how they're going to make decisions. So we have a lot of work. So this is why we're putting a call for art out there, so we can identify people who are doing the work, who are in design, what their skill level is. We want to provide resources to be able to get that on there. We have somebody asking a question. It's a little deep. I don't know if you have the time to go through this, but they're talking about corporate sponsors. And these are questions that we ask ourselves too, because, for instance, I'm a designer that refuses to work with mining companies. And yet mining companies are the #1 supporters, and money is actually comes from mining companies to promote most of the indigenous workshops that are in the urban areas. And so if you really start digging, if you follow the money, you really find out what's happening. And for me, the money doesn't outweigh the destruction that's happening. And so I refuse to work with, you know, that industry. But there might be somebody else that isn't that, and I'm not gonna persuade somebody to have my belief system, but I'm gonna stand firm in my belief system. So that's kind of how we need to come to the table and really have those discussions, because sometimes those discussions will persuade others to be our allies and our advocates. And we need to sit down and have real critical conversations like that and create that safe place for it. So yeah, corporate sponsors, I mean, you talk about oppression and just the systems that are in play. Not all corporate sponsors are built that way. Not all corporations are built that way, but you kind of have to discern for yourself.
And most of them don't have a place or even thought about natives, you know?
Yeah.
It's not really in their demographic to kind of like who they're trying to hit, you know, with whatever they're trying to push out. A lot of our demographics always looked over, or we're just grouped into the economic, income, you know, which is of what they're selling, you know. And so there's nothing really marketed for our indigenous people unless we go out and look for it, you know. That's why I do these lives, because I know Instagram is, a lot of natives use Instagram. A lot of them are switching over to TikTok. A lot of them are using YouTube, but majority of them are on Instagram, personal pages, and like such as yourself, your business pages. So I'm trying to use Instagram to keep heavy indigenous algorithms, keep feeding the algorithms with these lives, you know, and supporting indigenous pages, artists, fashion, you know. But who asked that question? He's a fashion designer from South Dakota, you know, and I believe, yeah, he lives in LA, and he's an established fashion designer, native fashion designer. And so I know he's still making his moves. He's still trying to make a whole new line. So I'm glad he tuned in, asked the question, you know, because this is huge right now. The whole world's watching reservation dogs. So everybody's looking at how natives dress, what they listen to, what they like, you know, all this. You know, it's pretty hot scene to be native right now. So And so with that becomes a lot of money, you know, and so you like what you said, you got to be very, you got to do your research before you take the money, before you sign the contract. Who's the company? What do they support? You know, who are they really? And you have to ask the question, what do you want from me? You have to keep your value. You don't want to just give your value away. You want to
Yep.
keep your value as an artist, as an indigenous person, you know, so you got to really understand what you bring to the table, you know.
Yep.
This is what I bring to the table, and you let them know this is what I bring to the table, and this is what I know I bring to the table. So this is what you owe me, you
Yep.
know, and well, this in return, this is what I'm going to give to you, you know. So, you know, a lot of these talks I'm going to have with some other, you know, established like news anchors, native news anchors, or you know, people that have like sat in those roles,
Yeah.
and to really demand this is what I want for my contract, you know. And so as far as that goes, that, you know, be mindful of who you sign your contracts with. You know, do research
Right.
on on your company sponsors, all that. You know. But,
Cool. So we just had two members walk in, some of our proud matriarchs,
all
building
right.
some really cool ideas in the art scene and just connecting us with a whole nother local vibe. Um, Appreciate them. But one of the things I think that we need to continue this conversation. I mean, I feel like if we did this regularly, we could inform a lot of people on what we're doing collectively. So if you're open to doing something more frequent, I think this would be a really cool conversation to continue and incorporate other artists to be a part of this, especially artists that are coming to Cahokia, because like I said, we create these conversations, we sit down and our minds just are blown all the time. And then we're
Yep.
like, how do we make waves, and how do we create change, but from our perspective, right? And from our
Hmm.
resources and what we know the world to be, how do we collectively do that and design a life that has everyone in mind? So I'm
Yeah.
really glad that you
Yeah.
you invited us to be on this.
Yeah. I'm glad that you guys accepted. You know, I'm reaching out to so many other people. So many people are busy in their creative zones, and I'm glad that I caught you off a meeting. You know, so I'm glad you made time for this. You know, and I'm glad you guys are here, and I found you guys, and I'm excited for future events, shows. Is there anything coming up you would like to
Yeah.
promote?
So every first Friday we have an event. And then on third Fridays, we're trying to create gallery shows. So if you want to participate in being a part of what that looks like, the planning aspect, we need our planners to come through, our organizers to come through, our advocates to come through, because this is all, first of all, I want to say something that myself and Melody are fully funding this entire endeavor. When we saw the opportunity, we said, you know what, let's just jump at it and let's create the messaging and the collaboration behind it. And so we're doing this out of our own pockets, knowing that it's going to benefit the community, it's going to have a ripple effect. And so it's one of those things where you have natives that have, you know, elevated to the top of their industries, and they're pulling their connections, they're doing projects that are at a higher level. And now how do we give that back to the community? How do we feed that back into the community so that we're bringing a whole new crop of youth into the future, into creating culture for, you know, our children. Like, I want my son to be able to know where he's from and how, you know, where he came from. So it's very important. It's very important right now. And I think all of us that have those instincts, that are creatively connected to the creator, I think we all know this. We all feel it in us, and we all are needing that connection.
Yeah. And I like to share just some of the things of since I've been doing these lives with artists and educators, there's a link. There's always been a link between art and education, you know,
Yep.
and you know, out of all what I'm doing, that's one thing I'm trying to connect and build a conversation between indigenous artists. What is that indigenous art? What does that mean? And our education, our storytelling. They're so intertwined that the local education board or the the local native uh, on the school board, that handles indigenous education, if there is any, the artists, they could help with the school because the school needs resources. The
Yep.
school needs people to come to the school and teach the kids about, whatever the artist can bring. So I know that hopefully we can bring these discussions of how much we have each other's back and how much we just got to get to it. We just got to find each other, find
Yep.
the right people. They're in the city. Sometimes we all need a little support, and so this is what also, if you have any words for the creatives out there, for the business owners, for the college students that are native and they're having a hard time today, but they got big dreams and they need some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom. Can you talk to them real quick?
Yeah, definitely. I know I go through my ups and downs. I'm a creative. I run on emotion, right? I receive things. I think one of the things that I have to tell myself constantly is you can't save the world alone. You can't make change alone. And you also have to love yourself. You have to give yourself the time that you need to create. And sometimes we're moving so fast between projects and ideas and, missions and whatnot, creating things, with other people that sometimes we don't give back to ourselves and create our own safety and our own comfort zones. And these are things that, even for me, just going out into the forest or going and floating on natural water, these are things that are very simple in ideas, but I don't ever get that opportunity because I'm in a densely populated city. And so I have to make time for that because that's my connection to the earth. That's my connection to all that energy that fed me for the longest time. And so if you're a creative and you're down in the dumps and you're, trying to find your way, it's probably because you're trying to connect to something that doesn't exist in this materialistic world. You have to find where that energy is coming from. And for some of us, it's all different kinds of things. I mean, some people like to doodle, some people like to paint, but when you're doing that and then you play music, right, it's all the senses related. It's visual, it's even taste. I mean, people love to cook, right? That's another form of expression. And so if you're able to give yourself that time to do it for yourself, meaning you're not trying to impress anybody, you're not trying to put on a show, it's just for you, you become empowered by that. You're the one that kind of grows from that. So give yourself that time. And I'm talking to myself right now because
Yes.
I
Yep.
have that issue right now. And I'm like, I need to slow down and I need to put in some water.
Yes, drink water, definitely important. Yep. Yep. That's good. I love it because we go through it, I was listening to this other, I might invite her. She makes soap, and I believe she's here in the Valley too. I forgot her Instagram page, but she did a live this morning, and I was just listening to her and hearing her talk, hearing her story, and then she just hit it on the spot. She was talking about her business. She was talking about she's took a vacation, and now she wants to come back.
Are you
Now she's
talking
realized,
about Rocio?
I don't know her name, but I just follow her Instagram page.
It's Morning Miss
Morning,
Soaps.
yeah, Morning Miss Soaps. Yeah, I caught her
Yeah,
live this morning. I was
she's
like,
an ambassador here.
okay. Well, I was like, yeah, I got to get her live. Maybe she seems like a really personal woman. So I'm like, well, maybe she don't want to share all that, but it was really good. It was really good. I'm pretty sure there's a
Yeah,
lot
that
of
girl, man,
business
she's a
owners.
powerhouse.
Yeah. So I know it's needed. People need to hear that they can do it. That there's natives out there in the same boat as you, and they're still creating. They're still trying to find that motivation in them to keep on going, to keep on going. To wake up. Some days, all we have is that, just to be indigenous. That's all the blessing we need through the day. Sometimes
Right?
they took all, lost this, yep, lost that. All I have is I'm just proud to be indigenous, man.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, you could be sitting on the corner, have no house, I feel like this is why when we were colonized, they wanted to beat this pride out of us, this sense of self, this sense of knowing
Hmm.
who we are, because we had it so strongly and we could be anywhere and we would feel safe, right? We created safety around us. We need to go back to that. We need to go back to how to create that. And that starts with from within. That starts from like who you are and knowing who you are. So right on.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this live. I don't want to hold
Yeah.
you too long, but yeah, we got to connect again and keep this conversations going. You know.
Yeah, and you have to check out the space. You have to come by and
Yep.
visit,
Yeah.
and check out one of our events. We have all kinds of events happening, but if you follow us on COHAKIA PHX on Instagram, we also just started a Facebook and then a Twitter. And I think the next one is going to be TikTok, but we're trying to figure out like who's going to be responsible for all these hats that are out there. So
Hmm.
yeah, we're planning to indigenize everything.
Yeah. That's what I love. That's what's up. Well, I hope you guys have a good evening. Tell you all your crew members much love and respect, and we'll be meeting you guys soon.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk to you
All
later.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Go Kia. That's the page, y'all. Follow them. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. That's the page right there. Hope y'all enjoyed the convo. Got some knowledge. Got some inspiration. Follow Kohakia. If you're an artist, fashion, music, arts educator, business owner, uh, author, whatever you guys want to do, let's talk about it. You know, one thing I want to talk about, I'm trying to find is a native wildland firefighter. So I want to talk to him about the fires that are going on nationally and get their perspective on it. But I love my community. I love my native people. It's a beautiful day to be indigenous and keep creating, y'all. Indigenize the world.